I'm Donna from Evoca, and we're going to continue on with our pants in this video. So just using the mask tool and just painting in underneath the top of the pocket. I'm just going to increase the brush size, so I'm not going to be here forever, and just sculpting in. So the red is obviously the mask area, and anything that's red we cannot sculpt on top of. So the mask tool will only work with a sculpting layer. So if you try to use the mask tool and nothing is happening, or an error comes up saying that you need a new sculpting layer, it's because you don't have a sculpting layer active. So make sure in the right hand side where you've got sculpt selected, and just hit new, and then you can create your new layer. And then I'm just going to use my grab brush, and I'm just going to pull the top of this pocket down so it's overlapping the main body of the pocket, and I'll smooth it back a little bit. So if we go in and unmask some of this area now, or add to the mask, you'll see that the sculpt that you did is affected. So if you add to the mask, the stuff that you just did will be taken away. So the mask it's kind of like a permanent addition. So if you remove this mask now, the sculpt will be taken back to what it was before you added the mask. So just flattening out the top of the pocket now, building up just a little bit more so it looks like the material is coming out and over. And just using flatten to define the edges a bit more. And just sculpting back in the division, since smoothing has made it a little less defined. There we go. Just undoing because I wasn't happy with that, so undoing and doing it again. There we go. Okay, so if we click back onto the base layer, I can go in and smooth some of this little pinching area out. And just define this just a little bit more with the smaller brush. There we go. With my wax tool, I'm going to go around the pocket and make some small pull type folds, because the top of the pants are relatively tight and the pocket is supposed to be quite full. So just making some small pull folds. It also helps to sell the idea that it's actually joined to the pocket. I'm just smoothing them right back because I only want them to be a light fold. I don't want them to be anything major. I'm just going to go around and do it around the whole of the pocket. So the bigger folds would be at the corners. So just smoothing it right back, so it's just a light addition to the mesh. Just pushing in some of these areas instead of building it up. So yep, that's looking good. Pretty happy with that. I'll go in and I'll just add some more folds around, like puckering type where the stitching is, around the actual pocket all the way around. Okay, almost done. Now I'm going to add a few to the corners of the pocket and just bring up this edge a little bit more to make it almost look like, I don't know, piping or another stitch. Just bringing it up to give it a little bit more shape on the side there. Just going to add a few folds here just for visual interest, to break up the solid form of the actual pocket. Just a bit of stretching along the bottom. And just to show, same with the top of the pocket, just to show like movement in the cloth. Okay, I'm happy with that now, so I'm going to go back in and work on the fly a little bit more. So just cutting in the edge, just turning on my wireframe and moving down a subdivision, so I can almost using the lines of the wireframe as a guide to keep it straight. So again, just making the brush smaller so I can make the cut deeper. Just trying to rotate it so it's upside down. I find sometimes it's easier to get a different perspective when doing some of these things. Okay, then just a light cut around where the actual stitch would be. And smoothing that out. I'm just smoothing on one side on this end. You'll also notice as we go down a subdivision that our on the sculpt layer that we made the pocket on is now got a circle with a line through it. So this means that we can't sculpt on that layer at this subdivision level. When you create a sculpt layer, it is locked to that subdivision level that you are on. So I'm just going to start on the other pocket now, and using the same technique as before, so cutting in to define the shape, and then we'll go in and make the pockets, the folds around the edges, and mask off the top of the pocket too to bring it down. So I'll use the same sculpt layer as the other top of the other pocket, so there's no point making another one. And again, making the brush smaller so I can go in and make the cup a little bit more defined. Okay, just continuing on with this. So again, I'm just going to move up to my highest subdivision level and then make sure that the sculpt layer is selected and start to mask out the bottom of this pocket. Okay, with the light, same with all the other brushes. So I can take away from the mask by holding Control and painting. Then using the grab tool to bring the top of the pocket down. Just pulling that out a bit as well. Okay, just smooth it back a bit. Trying to make them even. And smoothing it back a bit. Then using the flatten tool to flatten out the top. And the sides of the pocket. So just the same as before, using the same process as the other pocket. Okay, so I'm happy with that pocket now, so I'm just going to have a look at the pants. I think a few more folds around the top here might be in order. So just to break up the solid form here as well. So when we obviously bend, there will be a bit of fold around the pelvis area. So just some small light folds. Just kind of like memory folds. They're not there when she stands up. They're just like the back of the knee. They're there from when she was sitting. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that now. I'm going to, yeah, I'm pretty happy. I'm going to create a new sculpt layer. This one I'm going to call seam, and we're going to start to cut in the seam of the pants. So just using the sculpt and the fall off tool, make sure my steady stroke is turned on, and then I'm going to cut in the seam at the side of the leg. So just working on one leg at the moment, so I'm making sure that mirror isn't turned on, and then just cutting into the side of the pant. Okay, another good reason to use steady stroke is it helps when you're going over a line constantly, so that you can follow the line. It's got a bit of a delay on it, so you can see what your mouse is doing or your brush is doing as you draw it. So this is more like an invisible seam. It's not something that is folded out like the double seam you get on jeans. We're just going with a quick and easy seam here. So I'm just smoothing out on the edge here. Then I'm going to use pinch just on a small, and then small weight, and then just try and pinch these together, so bringing the seam a little bit closer to each other, the edges of their seam closer to each other. Just moving around to see how the light works with it. Yep, okay. Just going to use my mask tool again. So again, still on the seams layer. No, I'm going to try and maybe mask out one side. Turn on my steady stroke. Just looking around here. Thinking if this is the best way to do it. So like I said before, there is a bit of experimenting. I didn't like that. No, it was going to take too much time. So we'll just go back to just moving that above my pocket layer. So I'm just going to go back in and to use the sculpt tool and the fall off to create the seam. I was hoping to use the mask to mask out one side and to pull it over, but it would have been too time consuming and clumsy, so just using the sculpt and the pinch to bring them together to create the seam. So that's looking pretty good. Making sure it goes all the way to the bottom. We can do the other side of the leg as well. Just adjusting the strength a bit. It's like before, just lightly drawing in where I want the seam first to make sure I get it in the right spot. Seams don't have to be perfectly straight. In fact, it's probably better if they're not. It just makes it look like the cloth is folding and bending. I mean, you don't want it to be incredibly wiggly, but having slight bumps in it isn't going to ruin the seam any. There, so just cutting that in a bit deeper. Just smoothing that out a little bit. Oh, I'm pinching, sorry. Already smoothed on one side, so pinching it together and having a look to see how that affects the pants. It's looking pretty good. So now what I'm going to do, I need to obviously put a seam on the inside of the leg. So I'm going to switch to my selection move tab down the bottom. I'm going to make sure that faces is selected, and then I'm going to paint on the mesh. So the yellow faces are the selected faces. So just painting on one half of the leg, one half of the mesh, so one leg. The idea will be to hide this selection so we can get to the inside of the leg. So just working up, making sure you don't get any of the other leg, because that'll be the leg that we're painting on, so you don't want to hide that. So I hid that by just going to display hide selected. Of course, we've got this little bit here that we missed. So I'm just going to go all the way down to level 0 and paint. So this is done by vertex. So if you paint on near the vertexes, it should paint the edge. So trying to get all the section that we missed before. It can be a bit tricky since the mesh is so close together. So it can be all just about getting the right angle in order to get the selection. So try hiding that. Okay, so we've still got this bit left. So again, just trying to find the right position to get the face selected, and then just hiding that. There we go. Alright, so we can move back up to our highest subdivision level. Make sure we're still on the seams layer, and we can cut in that seam on the inside of the leg. Oh, just get rid of this little bit first. I mean, it's not necessary, but just in case. And again, using our sculpt tool to cut in the seam. So just making the brush smaller and cutting in the seam a little bit deeper. And just saving, because that little red flashing light can be quite annoying. So making sure it goes up and into the crotch or the groin area, whichever you want to call it. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's not often that you're going to have a shot that will see our character from underneath, but you can never know. Okay, when we're we're happy with that, we can run the pinch over it. So just using pinch with very small strength to bring it together. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll bring back our other leg. So unhide all, or show all. In the display panel, I'll add the seam down the center of the back. So just the same as the legs, just cutting in with the sculpt and the fall off tool. Make sure it goes all the way in. It'll join up with the fly at the front. And then selecting the other leg that we've already completed and hiding that so we can do the inside of the seam on the leg that's left. So just the same way as before, using the faces tool, painting in the selection and then hiding it, and then making sure that we get all the little pieces. All about the angles. Oops, accidentally got the wrong leg there. And then we'll hide that. There we go. Finish the seam off here, and we can continue on in the next video.